I have an example in the Abaqus Learning Edition. This is an example of a trampoline. This is not any particular real trampoline. It's a simulation model that has the attributes of a trampoline. You can see the model here. I have a membrane, that's the green part. The ball is the part that's going to bounce on the trampoline. The material of the membrane is hyperelastic. It's neo-Hookean in particular. The trampoline is meshed with membrane elements, M3D4 and M3D3 type elements. The ball is an analytical rigid surface and it has inertia attached to it. I have multiple load steps. I have an initial condition, which is the stress in the membrane. The membrane is held on the edge by a number of translator connectors that go from kinematic couplings on edge nodes into a central point. The central point is not connected to the membrane, it's fixed in space. So what we'll see happen here in step one is that the membrane will shrink to equilibrate the initial stress. This is a trick I learned when dealing with membranes in Abaqus Standard. So this is Abaqus Standard. And it will pull the translators in, and they have elastic stiffness to counterbalance the forces on the edge of the membrane. So we'll see that happen. And then in the second step, which is a dynamic step, I'm going to apply a velocity for a very brief time to the reference node of this ball. That'll make it begin to move fairly rapidly. And then in the last step, I'll let go of the ball and let it continue on with a constant speed until it hits the membrane. And of course, I have contact defined between this ball and the membrane of the trampoline. I've run this model already. It doesn't take very long to run, just a few minutes. We can look at the results. So here I have the mesh in the membrane, or trampoline. So I have the membrane elements here, and the analytical ball is revolved so it looks like an actual ball. You can see the translator connectors along the edge. So right now I'm looking at some time in step 3 after the dynamic motion has begun. Let's first look at what happens at the end of step 1. So at the beginning of step 1, I have the undeformed shape. And then at the end of step 1, because of the initial stress, the membrane should shrink in a little bit. So, and then I have gravity applied. So that's what it looks like sitting there in static equilibrium. And then in step 2, I've moved the ball a little bit. It's now going at a high speed, relatively high speed. And then in step 3 is when I get the dynamic motion. Let me tidy up my display a little bit by turning off the annotations, and I'll turn off the connector elements. We don't really need to see those. And let me color code this and turn off the edges. Oh, there we go. And maybe I'll put some more refinement on the ball just to make it look a little better. It doesn't seem to be much better, but this is what I have. So let's go ahead and do the dynamic motion. So let me have as active, whoops, only step 3. So verify that. So start at the beginning of step 3. And let's go. So you can see it bounce. It gets a little bit off center. The ball is freely bouncing. It's not like a person on a trampoline who can adjust. So it gets out of control a little bit, which can happen on a trampoline. And then it hits the edge in this particular case and falls off the trampoline. All right, so that's my example of a trampoline, or at least a structure that behaves sort of like a trampoline. There are all kinds of things you can play around with here. The stiffnesses in the translator spring, how much the ball weighs, how fast it's going when it hits the trampoline, how thick the trampoline is, what is the pre-stress in the trampoline, all kinds of things like that. So just a simple example.